wanted to dive into this Utah State game against Nevada. The Aggies take their 4th loss of the season. An 8-game winning streak snapped, or as I said on Twitter, an 8-game losing streak.
I saw that.
Yeah, a bit of a mistake there. Somebody said, thank goodness the 8-game losing streak's over. It's like, yeah, that probably would be.
Yeah.
But the Aggies were on an 8-game winning streak, had that snapped. They led this game against Nevada 68-60 with about 7 minutes to play. They led by 6 at kind of an even, I think 4 or 5 minutes to play. They end up losing 80-77. They miss 6 of their last 7 shots. Nevada makes 4 of their last 5. And they end up closing out the game to win. There were maybe a half dozen or closer to a dozen single plays that you could point to and say this might have tied the game, give the Aggies a chance to hang in there more late. But all of them coming up short, the Aggies narrowly lose to the Wolfpack.
Yeah, I know in most of the second half, Utah State played with the lead, but it just never felt like they were really in control. I mean, they had a 5, 6, 7, even 8-point lead at one point, but it never really felt like Utah State was firmly in control of the game because it just felt like Nevada was always there, always on the haunches, always making a play to kind of keep themselves in it. And it just never felt like Utah State could really separate. And then they just clammed up the final 6 minutes of the game. They get outscored 15-6. And, very few of those points were actually field goals. So Utah State just clammed up. Give Nevada some credit for what they were doing defensively, but the Aggies just didn't seem to have that same level of confidence. And quite literally, the coach didn't have confidence in some of his players. I don't really love how he called out how he didn't have confidence in Colby King. So, well, if Colby King hadn't had some turnovers earlier, I wouldn't have called the timeout. It's like, yeah, you don't need to say that. But you know what? The team kind of clammed up, and Nevada was rolling. This was a big game for them. This was their premier game. There was stuff going on around town about getting discount tickets. Everybody's getting a free shirt. They knew this was a big game for them. And Utah State has to be aware that no matter where they go, the opponent's going to treat this as a really big game for them. And it just didn't quite feel like Utah State was, not to say that they weren't ready for the moment, they struggled to finish strong in the moment. And that's not to say surprising, but maybe a little frustrating to see Utah State go through that.
Yeah, and they really did just fade down the stretch. And there was, the whole game, there were issues that were kind of showing up and cropping up that manifested a little bit more in the second half, but there were some present in the first half. And it basically boiled down to not being able to slow down Nevada in terms of, them getting offensive rebounds. Nevada got 11 offensive rebounds in a game where they shot 51% from the field. That's kind of pathetic.
They're just getting a lot of stuff.
You normally give up 11, double-digit offensive rebounds when you hold the opposing team to sub 40%, because it's usually when there's these games where the Aggies hold the opponent to 33% from the field, and the Aggies give up 15 offensive rebounds. I'm usually excusing that under the guise of, hey, the other team shoots really poorly. There's a lot of rebounds to be had. You're going to give up some.
Yeah.
But Nevada got 11 offensive rebounds while still shooting 51% from the field. While shooting 52%, round up, you get 53% from 3. They hit 10 3-pointers in the game. The Aggies kept fouling them. They commit 23 fouls in the game. As I said, Nevada getting 27 free throws. But something that I pointed out on social media a little bit earlier is Utah State's own offense, where they couldn't hit a shot inside to save their lives. And it's something I noted as being a theme throughout basically 3 of their 4 losses. One is a bit of an outlier with this. And that is that Utah State, you look at their 3 worst games in 2-point shooting percentage. They're all losses. Grand Canyon, they shot under 44%, this is 44%, just a hair under 44%. South Florida was under 40%. And Nevada, that was their worst 2-point shooting percentage of the season. And you look at, they had 17 shots blocked by the opponents in those 3 games. They shot 48% at the rim in those 3 games. And that's, and there are correlations between other things that Utah State does poorly in those losses, like not great 3-point shooting percentage, getting out rebounded, different things like that. But throughout the rest of the season, there are examples of Utah State overcoming one of those things. Bad 3-point shooting percentage, they've done that and won. Get out rebounded by a ton, they've still won in situations where that happened. But in their 3 worst games of 2-point shooting percentages, they didn't win. UNLV, that loss, it's 20th out of 27, in 2-point field goal percentage. So it's below average, and there were other factors in that. But Utah State was probably lucky to only lose this game by 3 based on how they shot those 2-pointers by making 15 3-pointers.
Yeah. That was their saving grace, is how well they were shooting. But most of that came in the first half.
Yeah, they made 13 3-pointers by about the 16-minute mark of the second half.
Yeah.
And they finished the game with 15. Like, once that dried up, it was basically Nevada slowly kind of crawling their way back. Like, Utah State did, to their credit, for about, I say from the 16-minute mark until the end, they only hit 2 3-pointers. But for about 10 minutes of that 16 minutes, they were actually finding ways to get points in the paint and get some free throws. There was some shift, but then in the final 5-6 minutes, everything dried up. Everybody missed their shots. Drake Allen, where he starts 5 of 5 from 3. Colby King hit 4 3-pointers. MJ Collins had 3 3-pointers. I think those 3 players combined for almost every one of those initial 13 3-pointers. Those 3 players collectively missed, I think, their last 13 shots. I think MJ missed his last 5 or 6. Drake missed his last 5, and Colby King missed his last 2 attempts from the field. In fact, he was the only one of those 3 to hit a 3-pointer in the final 16 minutes of the game for Utah State. So everything just dried up by the end.
Yeah, frustrating game in a lot of levels. Giving up 7 blocks, letting your team get blocked 7 times. Getting to the free throw line, not to the same level of Nevada. I mean, the free throw shooting disparity was maybe a little bit.
It wasn't bad. Like 27 to 19 is like 19. That's typical. You're going to have a team that shoots 6 or 7 more, especially the take fouls at the end, where Utah State deliberately fouled, I think, twice. That's 4 free throws. You essentially got outshot at the free throw line 23 to 19, minus some take fouls at the end.
Yeah, but you only make 12 of your 19.
Yeah,
especially late in the game, when every point matters in a tight game, and you're leaving points on the board, and then just you miss a free throw. Nevada gets the rebound, and you foul them on the rebound. It's like they just gifted possessions and free throws to Nevada in those final few minutes. It was so frustrating for Utah State. So frustrating to see how Utah State kind of, I'll say collapsed is, I think, the right word for Utah State. They just got cold. They collapsed. They just weren't as focused. And this wasn't just on players. I question Coach Calhoun, is the timeout that he called, not believing in his guys, even though it looked like there was a mismatch and an opportunity. He tried to brush it off like we weren't frantic, we were fine, but there were clearly shots that were getting chucked up kind of late. But just this late in the season, a little surprising to see how Utah State closed that game out. Yeah,
and one note on the fouls, seeing Utah State fouling on rebounds so much, I literally went back through the game log, the play-by-play, just to see how many times Utah State was fouling on rebounds. Just wholly unnecessary fouls that added up, because Nevada got into the bonus with 9 minutes and 25 seconds left in the second half.
Yeah, way too early.
We mentioned the 27 free throws. 20 of those were in the second half. Of the 4 of these 7 fouls, those fouls that ended up leading to Nevada getting into the bonus, 4 of those were just on rebounds. I think 3 of them were on defensive rebounds by Nevada. They get a defensive rebound, but you foul them while they're getting that rebound. There was one, it was a shooting foul after an offensive rebound. I did count that, but you're fouling on rebounds. Some of these 90 feet away from the other basket. I get fighting for rebounds, and you're going to have referees that call a little bit more, but Utah State had the whole first half to figure out how this game was getting called.
Quick fouls, and coach is like, I can't play him.
Yeah, and I don't get why. Like,
he's picking up these fouls way too easy, way too fast. I have to sit him.
One thing I don't understand about this is Zach Keller will max out at like 23 minutes. I think that's his season high this year is 23 minutes. If he gets 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the game, like, why would you change how long you play him?
Right. He still has fouls to give. Like, he can still help you. Like,
and say he picks up his 3rd foul, like, play him his usual 5-6 minutes in the first half.
Play him until he fouls himself out of the game.
Yeah, like, why are we...
You're going up against a big lineup that wants to punish you and make it tough in the post, in the paint.
Yeah.
Go big.
It's one of those things that I don't... It's along with, like, how...
that I don't
so
get
many
the rotations that happen to him.
It's like how so many coaches will... It's kind of like with Zach Keller, where, like, Carson Templin is essentially your starting center who doesn't start.
Oh, absolutely.
Other teams, and we've seen other Utah State coaches do this. Dan Akin was the starting center for the Aggies, but Trevin Dorius got his name announced every game in the lineup. Other teams do this. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter in the end. Coaches always say, oh, the starting lineup doesn't matter, but then they quote Stu Morrill about how playing time in my back pocket, that's the biggest motivator. So there's a contradictory aspect there. And then there's that where it's like, why not try? Just play Zach Keller longer. Yeah, if he's got 3 or 4 fouls, but you know what? You're only playing him 15 minutes anyway. If he uses all 5 fouls, just use him. But like that's, I don't want to.
That was happening earlier in the season to Gary Clark, and now on Saturday that philosophy got pressed on Zach Keller.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I don't want to criticize coaches too much
that were going on. I don't know.
Maybe, but like coaches are paid way too well for me to be criticizing them over basic decisions like this. I'm curious to know why, and I should probably ask at some point.
But in a game where you get out rebounded by 10, in a game where you get blocked 7 times, you need to go big. You need help with your bigs.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Just stash a guy on the bench for that long, who's been playing well, was a surprise.
I think that could have, it may have helped a little bit, but I don't think Zach Keller's making that big of a difference. And it's why I bring that up as a minor point of criticism. Playing Zach Keller another 5 or 10 minutes probably doesn't win the Aggies this game. I mean, in a game that's this close, maybe. But, like, I wouldn't really ascribe it to that because you could just as easily say, well, Mason got blocked like 4 times in this game. He went 4 of 10. I think most of his misses were blocks. He did have some solid minutes, but, he just couldn't really get his scoring going. He went 1 of 4 on his free throws. He did have 6 assists. So, like, there was some good and some bad, and he was a positive when he was on the court. The Aggies were +4 with him on the court. You could also point to MJ Collins, goes 3 of 11 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3. Of course, a couple of those last missed 3-pointers were desperation, so you don't criticize him too much for that. So effectively 3 of 7, maybe slightly below average, but he maybe could have hit one of those clutch shots. Yeah. And he only plays 21 minutes because he gets in foul trouble for 2 dumb fouls that he commits back-to-back in the span of essentially 0 seconds on the game clock. He committed 2 fouls. Sits out most of the rest of the first half, except for a minute where he came in and hit like back-to-back 3-pointers. Adlan Elamine, this is a guy who we were also singing his praise about how he was improving as a rebounder, as a scorer. He commits 3 fouls, has 3 rebounds, doesn't score a single point. And he did that in 25 minutes. So
yeah, you're right.
There's a lot of people we could pin
blame
this on.
is served equally across the table here. It's not just one guy or one coaching decision. There were a lot of things that could have gone better for Utah State. I mean, despite all those problems, the Aggies still almost won this game.
Yeah, and
still should have won this game.
Yeah, and they should have. It was basically the first time the Aggies haven't been clutch. And you can grant a team that. Utah State, again, there were so many plays, like calling that timeout with Colby King about to hit a game-tying shot, or like before he went into that process, because Coach called it when he was bobbling the ball, and then in the reaction time for the referee to hear it, his brain to fire up, and, that can take a full 2 seconds if you've ever watched the process of a timeout being called. Human reaction times will delay it from the moment it's actually called to, what corresponds happening on the court. So, yeah, Calhoun didn't call the timeout as Colby King was driving to the basket, even though that's when the whistle happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was unfortunate. Again, I also didn't like the way that the coach kind of handled that, where it's like, okay, do you trust your players or not? I guess he didn't. He just straight up didn't.
He didn't. I mean, he said so. I don't love hearing that.
Yeah, which that's a lesson for Colby. He's been up and down. Of course, he had 16 points.
He was one of your best scoring guys.
Yeah, though the Aggies were outscored by 11 points with him on the court. So, like, I've dinged Draw Gibbs Lawhorn for being outscored, even though his good offense. So Colby King maybe had some of the kind of that same game, and he had 3 of the Aggies 30% of their turnovers came from him alone. So there are some aspects there, but like Carson Templin, I probably made a bigger deal than I should have in my game recap about Carson Templin's missed free throws. But Carson Templin, he twice could have tied the game with free throws. He had a trip to the line where he split free throws. The Aggies were down by 1. Then Nevada actually split free throws. An 80% free throw shooter split his free throws. Carson Templin, after the whole mess with Colby King in that timeout, the Aggies still had the ball. Carson Templin gets a layup blocked. Then he gets his own offensive rebound, gets fouled. It was on the ground, though, and the Aggies were just in the bonus. He misses the front end of a 1-and-1, so he can't even get the chance for 1 point because he missed that free throw. The Aggies are down by 2, and everything kind of flows from there. And it was really only a Mason Falslev desperation fadeaway corner 3 that kept this anywhere close. And the Aggies might have lost by 6 or 7 or 8 had Mason not hit that 3-pointer, just with the take fouls in the way the last 17 seconds would have panned out. But yeah, like you can basically pick your favorite reason that the Aggies lost this game, but there are about a dozen of them.
Right.
I mentioned the whole thing about
pick a reason and you'll be right. The problem is there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I picked the 2-point percentage. That was kind of my pet theory, but Mason not having as good a game. Drake, MJ, and Colby King all going cold in the second half after a red-hot first half.
Adlin a no-show offensively.
Yeah, Adlin, the Aggies as a team not hitting their free throws. They go 12 of 19. Getting out-rebounded by like 10. Fouling. Like, again, you can just create a whole shopping list of reasons the Aggies lost this game where any one of those factors gets flipped and you turn a 3-point loss into a 1 or 2-point win. That sometimes is just the nature of losing a game on the road.